Offer some prayers to Srila Prabhupada before we begin. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swam Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nivasisha Sunyavadi Pashtatara Sataline Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Hari Ram, Ram Ram, Hari Hari. Now, I hope last week's part one might have inspired you to one degree or another to try and be more attentive in your sadhana. That was the idea. And in part two, I'm going to leave a little time at the end. Let's see how we go. I'm going to leave a little time for a bit of a istagosti, meaning that I've listed some ways which have helped me to become more attentive, and also what I've heard from others as well. But it'd be good to hear from yourselves as well. There's many devotees here who've been practicing devotional service for many years, and you all have your struggles and successes, for instance, in a japa. So just keep that in mind. Towards the end, we'll ask for you can share some appropriate things where you've been successful, or your struggles, if it's appropriate to share, and how you overcame being attentive, and perhaps your experiences and the different experiences you have had in chanting attentively and chanting inattentively. So you can be thinking of that as we're going through. And as I usually do, I'd like to give a little summary of what we did last week, but not spend too much time. So I'm just going to flash through a few slides. But can I just check that everyone can hear me clearly? Someone can unmute and say
yes.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and it's good if I always like at least some people can have their camera on. It's difficult to speak to a computer. I like to see life there, so some if possible. You don't have to. That's it. Great. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, last week we started off just speaking about the general quite all-pervasive problem as a result of social media, which it can have. It can have quite a detrimental effect, especially when our main practice is to chant the holy name, and that requires being attentive for 2 hours. So he's looking at the worldwide phenomena and some of the problems that are being caused by social media. For instance, it's got something here called TikTok brain. It's mainly used by young people, where videos are anything from up to 10 seconds only, or 2 minutes or more, things like that. Then we have YouTube, etc., scrolling, etc. So these often called weapons of mass distraction, not destruction, but in one sense destruction, but of weapons of mass distraction. So we're looking at that, and we have to admit that as devotees also, we have been affected by this as well. So this does have its problems. So I'm still letting people in here. Yeah. So as inattentive, or being attentive might pose a daunting task for some of us, most of us, but we should consider that without learning to be attentive, we are not going to make very rapid advancement, or we might not make any advancement at all. So we're highlighting that connection between social media and its consequences upon us as sadhakas. And in spiritual life, we need to be attentive. Otherwise, a little slip or little mishap or being inattentive can, as we we know the story here of Maharaj Bharat. He was inattentive to his sadhana, and we all know the results. So this verse here, but take heed, learn the transcendentalists warn that the path of spiritual realization is difficult and as sharp as the edge of a razor. So spiritual life entails being careful. Yeah. And we gave also this here. Being attentive can help us in many ways. We just listed 3 here. I won't go through them in detail because we covered it. If we're attentive, we can make advancement very quicker. Our spiritual practice can be effective. Helps us to steer us in the right path. Yeah, often, sometimes, because practicing bhakti or chanting the holy name, so the holy name is like a wish-fulfilling desire tree. So even material things or material position may come, and we may become distracted from the goal of developing pure devotion because of inattentive chanting, and we may get distracted by the material facilities that may come. All right, so also avoid contrary results, and we had this slide for that. Yeah, sometimes here's an example of yeah, what was that quote here? Vrita Sura, he was conceived from a fire with the goal of killing Indra, but because the Pujari was inattentive, he mispronounced the mantra, so the opposite was then received. So we may get, if we're not attentive in our spiritual practice, then we may not get the result. We may get contrary results. Yeah, so we discussed that a little bit. And then we gave, and this is where we started recording last week. So this is where we picked it up from. We gave, in order for us to have a more broader understanding of what attentiveness means in regards to our spiritual practices, then we highlighted these different Sanskrit terms given to attentiveness. So it kind of gives us a broader picture of what it means to be attentive in our chanting, in our spiritual practices. So I'll just go through these a little bit quick. Hopefully we can remember some of them. Sadhana. We sing this in the morning, as we mentioned, Shri Guru Chalana Padma. Yeah. Oh, someone's trying to get in. Let me let them in. Okay. So Savadana basically means here one should be very, with great care. The word means we should worship with great care. Savadana, with great awe, great care. So no, we should approach our sadhana with great care. Yeah, and this could be summarized like this. So Savadana means to place our wandering minds and devotions where they belong, in Guru and Krishna. So that should be like manashiksha for us. Yeah. Our minds will wander. That's their natural state at the moment. Yeah. But we should have a determination that we want to bring them, we want to bring the mind where it belongs. And where does it belong? Savatana. As usual, anyone, please, if you have any questions or comments, anything you want to add, you can put in the chat, or you can raise your hand, or you can unmute and shout away. No problem. Well, not shout, perhaps speak. Hari Krishna. And avahita was another word. Interesting. Let's just give, avahita. It means to put other things aside. Now is not the time for thinking of this. Now is not the time for thinking of that. Now let's just put other things aside. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So.
Now,
So do I need to mute? Is that a question, or perhaps I need to mute someone? Yeah, devotees, if you can mute if you're not asking a question or making a comment, it makes it a bit easier to concentrate. Thank you. Yeah. So to fix the mind with and not deviate from its intended purpose. I'm sure, has anyone gone to do something online or started reading a book and you've gone off course? Your original purpose has changed. Yeah. So that's a sign of inattention. So avahita means not to deviate from an intended purpose. Yeah. Have a bit of a sankalpa. Be fixed. Yeah. So avahita. And then This one I find quite interesting. It's very nice. Utkana. We can consciously choose to be attentive, or we can unconsciously, we're choosing not to be attentive. And it means like utkana means we don't literally do this, as I said, but we can positively pay attention. Utkana, we can lift the ears to actually hear transcendental sound and make an effort. That's called being attentive. Utkana. There's this verse here how Krishna is hearing Radha around his ankle bells and he's very attentive. Utkana. He's put his ears up and he can hear that sound. Yeah. So perking up the ears, basically, it means perking up your ears. Utkana. And then we aparamatta. Yeah. So actually being basic, more or less what's being described here is being, and we described this in part 2 coming when we start as well, it comes up again, but being inattentive is a sign of being intoxicated or mad. Okay. And we'll look at that in a few minutes. Okay. So aparamatta means not being mad or intoxicated. Yeah. Here's a picture of Shambhari Muni. He fell prey to inattention in his bhajan, and we know the story. Yeah, as in our scriptures in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And then here's Lord Buddha. Yeah. So another meaning for attentiveness we covered is samahita. So to collect one's thoughts and concentrate the mind. Yeah. So we collect one's thoughts together and concentrate the mind. Okay. Attentive. This basically means not to be, we use the word lassitude, which means to be free of being lazy, weary, or tired. That gives us the ability to be attentive. Yeah, I think a question came up as well last week. What to do if so being rested helps us to be attentive. So Attentive means not being, it's the opposite of lazy. And here, like Maharaj Parikshit, he definitely wasn't falling asleep when he was here in Sukadeva Goswami. There was no chance of his falling asleep because he was relishing so much the nectar coming from Sukadeva Goswami. He actually conquered sleep. He conquered sleep. So that's Attendrita. So he was very attentive to Sukadeva Goswami. Yeah. And then there was a summary of all of those. I think some of you I saw taking pictures on the screen. Again, this is recorded. If you want to have this, you can. I'll leave it for a few seconds here so you can perhaps look at it. Perhaps I'll read it. By investing all his faculties in the process of sadhana without lassitude, a practitioner regains his spiritual sanity. Then by the strength generated from Nam Sankirtan and Srimad Bhagavatam, he systematically plumbs the depths of Smaran to reach the state of Krishna consciousness where, among other things, he is free of all bodily demands, such as weariness. That is the way of attentive sadhana. Okay? So if anyone asks you, what does it mean to be attentive in sadhana? You can repeat this, yeah? Okay, now all of those can be categorized, given one word, which means ekagrata. Just letting someone in, 1 second. Which means one-pointed attention, ekagrata. All those terms can be summarized as ekagrata, one-pointed attention. That's why this photo is very good. I think it really illustrates it nicely. This is Arjuna, I think, and he's ekagrata. He's fixed in his meditation. Yeah. So I just summarized this part very quickly. Basically, we emphasized here that the most important thing for a spiritual practitioner is to be attentive. So whatever situation you can find, whatever place you can find, whatever you need to do so you can be attentive, that's what you should do. Yeah. And we gave some, even in the Holy Dham, yeah, we gave some examples there. Yes, the Holy Dharma is definitely part of our instructions from our acharyas to live in the Holy Dharma. But more important than that is to be in a place where we can be attentive. So definitely the Holy Dharma can help. But I gave an example myself. I was at Radhakund and I couldn't be attentive. There was too much noise. So I didn't just sit there, oh yeah, I'm at Radhakund, let me just be inattentive. And no, I wanted to chant attentive round, so I had to move somewhere. All right, that was a quick synopsis of that. So again, please, anyone, you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And now I'm going to jump forward a bit. I hope you don't mind, and pick up where we left off last week. Trying to find a slide here. Okay. So you can read what's in the top, the slide there, or is it all hobbly-gobbly? Because when I'm looking at the screen here, it's like overlapped with 2 words. But can you read the title of the slide? Someone can just unmute and say. There's something in the chat. Check that out.
Inattentiveness Sutra.
You can't read it. Okay, because it's all. Sorry about that. Well, basically means inattentive sadhana. Okay, that's what it says behind there. Inattentive sadhana. It takes too long to change it now. Right now, so now we're going to look at attentiveness. We've looked at it from a positive perspective, what it actually looks like. And incidentally, we've included some aspects of being inattentive, which naturally, but now we're going to look, as we looked at the word for attention, we're going to look at the word inattentive. So we're going to look at being attentive from another perspective. Yeah. And Bhaktivinoda Thakura, he speaks about this, especially in relationship to the holy name. So we'll be quoting, some of you may have read this, we'll be quoting from the Hari Bhakti Chintamani, where he discusses different symptoms of inattentiveness. Now, if we was to give a sutra to what inattentiveness is, then we might come up with what's here, with what you can see. Okay, inattentiveness means to be distracted from the practice and purpose of one's bhajan. Its ramifications are a variety of offenses to the holy name, and we're familiar with that. It's considered to be an offense while chanting. So again, inattentive means to be distracted from the practice and purpose of one's bhajan. Its ramifications are a variety of offenses to the holy name. Someone's phone's ringing. Let me just mute. Those are not muted. Okay. Okay, please, Hari Krishna. So, everyone can hear me fine, okay? Yes. Someone can repeat back? Yes, because I can't see any cameras now. There is
Yes.
so I don't know what's that. If someone could turn the camera on, even if you got your curlers in, it doesn't matter. Okay. Thank you, Hari Krishna. Okay. All right, so we're now this is going to help, because when we see it's described, when we see the devastation that inattentiveness can cause, it will help us to take it seriously. Yeah, the actual importance of being attentive in our sadhana. Now, especially we're going to focus here, as you can guess, on chanting. All right, so here's a sutra which may explain what is inattentiveness and the consequences. Okay. Now here's a word. This is Ramada. So this is a word used by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura, and this means inattention. Yeah, this word is a Sanskrit for inattention. So that's what's commonly used in Sanskrit, and it can have different meanings. This inattention has different meanings, and we'll go through them. Yeah. So here, remember we covered a couple of these in part 1. So inattention, or the word pramada, can also be expanded to mean intoxication, madness, insanity, negligence, and carelessness. And now there's a verse from the 5th canto. Nunam pramada koradevi kama yat indriya pritya aprinoti. So nunam pramada, this is by Lord Rishabdev. And he describes, the translation is just the beginning of that verse from the 5th canto. When a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he becomes mad, he becomes pramada, becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. Yeah. So in this case, pramada means mad. Also, Krishnadas Kaviraj, Brahma, and one Brahma Pramada Vipalipsa Kanapadakva, Asha Vikan Vyaki Nahi Doshi Shab. So he describes the conditions of a conditioned soul. They're prone to make mistakes, fall into illusion, cheating, and defective. They have defective senses. So here, in this verse by Krishnadas Kaviraj, pramada means here inattention due to, or it means illusion. Okay, and Prabhupada, in this verse by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, then he writes further that pramada refers to inattention or misunderstanding of reality. Okay, so that is described further actually, that the verbal root is mud. Okay, so when you have pramada, it amplifies the meaning. It amplifies the meaning. So pramada then, so this pramada actually means utter madness. Okay, means utter madness. So in other words, when a person, basically, when a person's mad, he has no control over the mind and senses. So he or she cannot be attentive. All right. So here, madness and inattention, madness and inattention are closely related. They actually share the same Sanskrit word. Okay. They share the same Sanskrit meaning. So inattentiveness, according to the Sanskrit definition, also means utter madness. All right. Might be, just looking in the chat here. Okay. So again, please, if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to share. You can use the chat. Forgive the photo here. Here's it's quite an apt photo. So this is perhaps the main obstruction for us as sadhakas, is the main obstruction caused by inattentiveness, particularly in chanting Krishna's holy name. Yeah. So pramada results in nam aparad. Yeah. Being attentive results in nam aparad. Yeah. So as we know, that Krishna is actually non-different from his name. He is non-different from his name. It's good if we can enter into our japa with that in mind. It's actually Krishna. Yeah. So there is no actual difference between the two. Yeah. So Krishna, as I think we mentioned as well in part 1, and we mentioned about being attentive very much helps in relationships. And we mentioned that if one is inattentive during relationships, that can also cause problems. So relationships generally it can be referred to inanimate objects, but generally when we speak of relationships, it refers to persons. Yeah. So Krishna is a person. So he likes to be addressed attentively. Is anyone, I'm sure we might have had the experience where you're speaking to someone and they're not attentive? Anyone had that experience? I mean, how do you feel? What is it like? So Krishna is a person, yeah. So he does not like to be called on with a dismissive or inattentive attitude. Yeah. So in one sense, I described that when we chant with a careless attitude, he is offended. And that manifests generally as the holy name will withdraw its mercy. Yeah. And we will become more, and we will find it very difficult, especially if the being inattentive in japa is chronic and we're not addressing it and we're not trying to be attentive. Yeah. Then that it can lead to various different anarthas, various different offenses can actually come from that one thing. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura mentions that as a root of all offenses. Yeah. Now, we should also mention here that offenses to Krishna's name are not just in relationship to negligence in chanting, but it can also mean not if we're not listening carefully to a speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, exalted speaker, it's also considered to be an offense. Yeah. Now, here's the Pachetas and Lord Shiva here. Now, in place, yeah. So this, I just read this here. This is Lord Shiva. He's speaking to the Pachetas, and he says, "Now I shall chant one mantra, which is not only transcendental, pure, and auspicious, but is the best prayer for anyone who is aspiring to attain the ultimate goal of life." So he mentions here, I've got in the highlights, when I chant this mantra, please hear it carefully and attentively. And Prabhupada in the purple, the reason why we highlight this, because Prabhupada in the purple to this verse, excuse me, I didn't put what verse it was. He says, Lord Shiva advised the sons of the king to hear him attentively, for inattentive hearing is offensive. Okay. So again, as it's offensive to be inattentive to the holy name, it's equally offensive to be inattentive while hearing Srimad Bhagavatam or by serving the person Bhagavat. Yeah. So again, when we're hearing Bhagavatam, we should be like sitting on the edge of our seats, trying to catch every word. I must admit, it's not easy, but this is what we should endeavor to achieve, to be fully attentive. Yeah. And we'll address that at the end. We have some tips at the end, which we will go over. And now perhaps we're good to hear some other voices rather than mine. Could someone perhaps like to read this verse for us? Someone could unmute and read this.
I'll read it, Prabhu.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
If one is infested with the 10 offenses in chanting of Hari Krsna Maha Mantra, despite his endeavor to chant the holy name for many births, he will not get the love of Godhead. That is the ultimate goal of this chanting. Adi Lila, chapter 8, verse 16.
Yeah, 16. Yeah. So we covered this before, but it's important to bring it up again. So this is very significant. So the word endeavor means to make a determination. Okay. So endeavor. So we must, in other words, we must make repeated efforts to progress. No, actually, despite our repeated efforts to progress in Krishna consciousness, so I'll just move a few things around on my screen. Yeah. If we are still, or if we are inattentive, despite our efforts, we will not make progress. Yeah. Despite our efforts in devotional service in other areas, if we're not addressing our inattentiveness, we will not make progress. Yeah. Despite our efforts in devotional service in other areas, if we're not addressing our inattentiveness, we will not make progress. while chanting. It's described further on in Adi Leela that the sprout of love of Godhead will continue to evade us until one stops one's offensive ways. It will continue to evade us despite making repeated efforts. If we're missing this, then we won't make progress. Okay. Now there's
Can I ask something?
sorry, please, yeah.
Can I ask something?
Please do, yeah.
Yeah. Well, my question is that, when you try and be physically present, but then, your mind is so much wandering, especially when you're going through any relationship issues, financial issues, any family issues, anything like that. It is, kind of disturbing your material life. Despite being focused there, your mind keeps wandering and thinking about that, I don't have a job, how I'm going to feed my family in 3 months' time, my relationships like that. So how do you try and get your mind back to that focus, to chanting, to the Maha Mantra, despite having that problems you're going through materially in your life?
Yeah, I mean, this is I'm sure what you're explaining is quite common actually in this age of Kali. There is so many reasons to be distracted, so many things that we're dealing with, so many different challenges that we actually have. And we have to say that so we have to say that these will affect our abilities to be able to concentrate on the holy name. So we have to develop a sense of detachment. You have to develop a sense of knowledge and understand that the actual what we may be dealing with or what maybe we are going through is actually part of the material package. And we have to learn to put it to one side when it comes to our spiritual practice. It's difficult, but we have to try to do it, to have a sense of detachment. Yeah, we have Adi-Bhautik, Adi-Devic, and Adhyatmic miseries. So that's one point, is we should see it for what it is, and in actuality, the things and the problems that we are dealing with may seem very, very big to us, but from the grand scale of things, they're just the everyday struggles which everyone is facing. So we should take that into consideration and learn, especially at a specific time of our sadhana, that as we went through those definitions of attentiveness, that's the time to put things aside. And it may be difficult, especially if it may be difficult, but we have to try and we have to want to take shelter. So there's two things there: to develop some transcendental knowledge and develop a sense of detachment, even in the midst of the challenges of life, and then also approach our sadhana with the meanings which we covered for attentive sadhana, and actively seek Krishna's shelter to calm the storm that's going on in your mind. Yeah. Krishna will give you shelter if you call to him, despite what's going on in your life. So we have to, with the realization of the position we're in, we should go to Krishna and want to take shelter of him. Just like the cowherd boys and the cowherd in the Vrindavan, when Indra sent his rains, they all ran to Krishna. And Krishna will give us shelter. And if we are insistent, then Krishna is very kind, and he will allow us to enter into the calming boat of his holy name, even in the most difficult and trying situations. Because if you think that you're struggling now, what's it going to be like when we're leaving this world? When the whole body is actually falling to pieces around us. So if we don't practice now in the difficulties that we're facing in life to be attentive, then what hope do we have when we're going to be facing the final test, when the whole body is falling to pieces? So I don't know if that answered your question. I'm kind of addressing one point. To learn, we have to be a little bit, through transcendental knowledge, we have to learn to try to be a little bit detached from the threefold miseries. Okay, then now we are feeling distracted, we are feeling turmoil. Have faith that Krishna can give you shelter if you go to him and you try to be attentive. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Did that help?
Yes, Prabhu, definitely.
Yeah. And we have a question from Lisa. She mentions, does that mean listening to lectures while working or doing chores is actually offensive? Well, sometimes that question comes up. Sometimes, we chant as 16 rounds, but we should chant all day, doing our shopping or whatever. Kirtana Sada Hari. So not exactly based on that principle that we want to always be hearing transcendental sound. So while we're working or doing chores, we may be listening to Prabhupada lecture. Yeah, like that's what I do when I wake up in the morning. The first thing I do is I've got this wonderful little try to find it to show you. This wonderful little recorder. It's got all of Prabhupada's lectures on. So I turn it on first thing when I wake up. And when I'm taking shower, I've got the Prabhupada lecture. I'm cleaning my teeth. Now, I'm not paying 100% attention. So it's not exactly an offense. Now, but when you're sitting down for class, when you're sitting down to chant your japa, that's the time when you can be and you want to be fully attentive. Yeah, you practice trying to be fully attentive. Yeah. So Kirtana Sadahari, we can chant while we're driving, but don't chant your japa while you're driving. Okay? Please don't chant japa while you're driving. Yeah, that is offensive. Yeah, but you can chant Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari. Because that's the principle. We should be chanting 24 hours a day. Yeah, Lord Chaitanya would chant the holy name in the toilet. There's a whole story about that, So he was otherwise engaged, but he was chanting the holy name. So I hope that answers that question, Novelisa. Not generally, not. No, we can hear lectures while we're working or doing chores, but we should be practiced when we're actually in a live class to be attentive. Yeah, or when we're chanting our rounds. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. Please, anyone else has any additional comments on these questions? It's always nice to hear. Mother Harini, she's asking how to do when other devotees want to communicate with us while we want to read or chant or doing service. That is not allowing us to be attentive. Devotees should know, you should create an atmosphere where they know that you do not want to be disturbed. Now, it depends on the specific situation. If it's one particular devotee, or then you may nicely explain, actually, this is my japa. Yeah, so please don't distract me from my japa. What was that? Just remembering one devotee. One devotee was senior devotee. Who was that? Kadambakana Maharaj, actually. He had this funny saying about someone who tried to disturb his japa. He said, if you disturb my japa, I smash your face. You disturb my japa, I smash your face. So everyone knew you don't go to Maharaj when he's chanting his japa. He wants to chant his japa, unless it's like, there's a nuclear bomb heading this way, Maharaj. But then Maharaj probably wouldn't care less. He'd still be chanting. So Mother Harini, you need to make it known, or you need to chant somewhere where you're not going to be asked to do this. You want to perhaps organize things beforehand. This is your time for reading. This is my time for chanting. So don't always say yes. If someone comes and asks you to do something, you can always say, sorry, now I'm chanting, now I'm reading. Please, please come back in an hour. So you have to kind of, you have to create that atmosphere. You have to want it, and you have to do what is needed so that you're not unnecessarily disturbed while chanting or reading. Okay. And is it another question from Tom Bentham? Is it better to not do service or to do service inattentively? We got to start somewhere. If we're going to wait, till we're attentive before we can do service, then we might be waiting a long time. Yeah. So at least take up the activities of devotional service, and by listening to presentations like this and by listening to Srimad Bhagavatam class, you can gradually learn to engage also our mind. So first thing we engage in devotional service is our senses. So we engage in active devotional service. The mind normally takes a bit more time to come on board. Okay. You have the Chesta Rupa, which is the activities of the senses in sadhana. Then you have the Bhava Rupa, which is the engagement of the mind. So that's going to come a little bit later. First, just engage in devotional service. And from that purification, you'll get the ability to engage the mind, to be more attentive. So I hope that helps. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Feel free to ask. All right. So, yeah. So, sorry. Excuse me.
Sorry to bother, Prabhu. I was just having a thought, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
When we're talking about being attentive while chanting, and one devotee mentioned about the different things happening in someone's life and stresses and things like that.
Yeah. Please. Yeah.
And I was thinking, the thought just occurred to me, I work, and even if things are happening around, when I'm doing my job, I have to be focused in what I'm doing. And I was thinking, is it fair to think that we should approach our devotional service and our chanting in the same way, in terms of our constitutional position being to serve Krishna, and therefore we have to try and be focused to do this properly?
Absolutely correct. And that you kind of nicely gave a nice summary of the words with the words in Sanskrit which mean attentiveness. Remember, to put things aside, yeah, to gather one's thoughts. So exactly that, yeah. So we should have that. Now's the time for my spiritual practice. I should put other things aside and gather my thoughts. So yeah, I think you echoed that very nicely. Thank you. Hari Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
We were bringing that out again. A few questions coming. This is from Garamia. It is said to wake up early and chant, but what if someone can't wake up so early and later has responsibilities to do? How can a person find time to chant? Whenever you wake up, depends. It depends on your specific situation. But knowing that we have a responsibility as devotees of Krishna, and our main practice is a chanting the holy name, it has to become part of our life. So our life has to be arranged. We have to arrange our life behind this principle that we actually need to find time. So it means we need to create time. So as one takes up the activities of bhakti, one has to make adjustment to one's life. So I don't know specifically about your situation, Garima, but if you can organize yourself so you can sleep earlier, then you can obviously wake up earlier. Yeah, but if that's not possible, then don't worry. But from whatever time you do wake up, you should organize your life in such a way you should have some sacred space, and understand that you have to have that sacred space in order to do your spiritual practice. Don't what's the word? Don't let anything get in the way of that. Yeah, try you absolutely need to create that space. Yeah, so that you have to manage. So I'm trying to look for a specific word. Yeah, don't compromise. Don't compromise. Have your virtue, or have your standards set for what you want to achieve. And one of them is to chant the holy name. So you have to organize your life accordingly. I don't know if that helps, Garima, if I pronounce that name correctly. Garima. Something to think about. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Did that help? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. How can a person find time to chant? Yeah, I mean, it's quite mystical, actually. Krishna's the master of all mystics, and when one first is approaching devotional service, and one's first trying to think how to organize oneself, and part of one's devotional practice ultimately means to spend 2 hours in meditation, minimum. Yeah. Then you'll find magical things can actually happen. Where Krishna, once you make that endeavor and you take up the chanting of the holy name, I'm sure our devotees here can share that mystical, wonderful, magical things happen where time seems to expand. Yeah. Things seem to fall in place, which allows you to actually do your sadhana. Yeah. Devotees often describe that when, as before, they thought it was impossible, but when they actually take up the chanting, things move in their life, and they realize that what they thought was not possible was perfectly possible. Yeah. And sometimes even devotees experience that they have more time because their life becomes simplified as well. So yeah, so keep on trying. So organize your life in such a way, take it seriously, and try not to compromise that this is now an important part of your life. Just like cooking, we have to cook every day, isn't it? We have to eat. So we have to chant every day. We should have that determination. Yeah. Okay. So just picking up again here. Now, there's generally what's going to happen if someone is not addressing this being inattentive, and one is constantly distracted. Then what's going to happen is one is developed these bad habits and obviously offenses, that's going to make one's sadhana more difficult. Basically, if we're not getting a result, if we're not getting a taste from our spiritual practices because of inattentiveness, and then from that, because of offenses, we're going to become discouraged. Yeah, after 4 or 5 years or 6 years of not perceiving any specific tangible taste because of inattentiveness. I'm speaking of a chronic situation here, just exaggerating a point so we take it seriously. If we don't get a taste for 1, 2, 3, or 4 years, and we're making offensive because of inattention, we're going to be discouraged, and we're going to be even more negligent. Yeah. So, and then that's when sadhana becomes more difficult. Sometimes it's described, it could be like running waist deep in water. Don't know if anyone's tried to run in water. It's very difficult. So in short, inattentive chanting of Krishna's holy names, it drains our inspiration. Yeah. It drains our inspiration. But the more attentive we are, the more we can feel inspiration. The more inattentive we are, it drains our inspiration, Now, as we mentioned, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura, in his Harinam Chintamani, he recalls the conversation Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura recalls the conversation between Haridas Thakur and the Lord Chaitanya on the glories of the holy name. So we're going to look at that now. Some of you may be familiar with it. But first, I get someone to read here how Lord Chaitanya emphasizes the importance of offenseless chanting. So someone could read this here for us. Any readers out there?
I don't mind if someone wants to. That's fine.
Go ahead, please. Thank you.
O Lord, to Sanatan Goswami, here is Jagannath Puri, and to Gopal Bhatt in South India, you taught that the holy name must be chanted attentively, that inattention in chanting is an offense, that a devotee may carefully avoid all other offenses, yet still not experience the ecstasy of the pure name. Due to the offense of inattentiveness, the chanter is obstructed in efforts to reach the stage of firm faith, and so growth of the devotional creeper is stunted, divesting it of the potential to flower into love of Krishna.
Okay, so this is from the Harinam Chintamani. So it's quite frightening, isn't it? The effects of inattentiveness. Yeah. So yeah, under the influence of this bad habit, there's a chance that some devotees will fall away from the path of pure devotion, or otherwise one would be on a slow boat to Bhava, long lifetimes. Yeah. So here's the examples that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura, well, he mentions 3 points here, and we're going to look at these separately. These are obstacles in our chanting or in our devotional service in general. So he lists 3 here. One is apathy, laziness, and distraction. Okay, so he mentions these as 3 kinds of inattentiveness. And also he recommends how to overcome them. So we're going to look at that as well. Now, unfortunately, as conditioned souls, we have a long-standing connection to sense gratification. So generally, that condition is generally unfavorable for attentive sadhana in the beginning. Over and above that, there may be for many sensual acts have left their impression within a subtle body, which basically means memories may be full of such things. Now, ideally, when we chant the holy name, remembrance of Krishna should be coming. Yeah, from his name, then comes his form, qualities, pastimes, etc. That's another presentation we had. It's part 2 of this actually. So Harinam should ideally be accompanied by remembrance of Krishna, but unfortunately, for many it can be, instead of spiritual thoughts, it's mundane ones. Yeah. So therefore, devotee may have an inability to actually focus on Krishna's name, and it results in inattentiveness because of all what's maybe coming up in the subtle body. Yeah. So what to do about that? We mentioned that a little bit in one nice question we had, but Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura warns that we have to be resolute. We have to steer away from an otherwise ingrained habits. Yeah, we have to steer ourselves away. It's the same as driving. We have to steer in a certain direction. These thoughts are going to come, just like bubbles in the bottom of a river. They just come. Droop, droop, droop. Mahabharata mentions that that not one thing that the subtle body has seen or registered is ever forgotten. It kind of soaks in. So we got experiences and emotions and impressions going back hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes. And often these things come up, just like if you look in a river, it may be placidly still, but because of the plants, there's the oxygen comes up, so bubbles come up. So especially when we take to the process of devotional service, then this is an Attentive. All the previous thoughts, emotions, and conditions are coming up. But we have to take the reins, and we have to be kind. We have to develop some resolute determination. Yeah. Because otherwise, even if you chant, that's why it says at the top of the slide here, not a drop of taste. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura says, unless you're resolute in order to be attentive, then even if you chant 64 rounds, it won't produce one drop of taste for the Lord's holy name. Right, so a bit frightening, but that's how Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura begins his Harinam Chintamani. Yeah, so let's have a look at these three words: apathy, laziness, and distraction. We can see if this is part of our spiritual practice. It shouldn't be, but so I just ask, what comes to mind? Anyone could say what apathy means? I've got the dictionary meaning here, but I just wanted to see if you have a clear understanding what apathy means.
Not bothered.
Yeah, that's one, not bothered. Anybody else? Apathetic. One is apathetic. In the chat here, yeah, you can type in the chat if it's easier. Indifferent. Yeah, that's also, yeah, to be indifferent. To be not bothered. Go on.
Sorry, Prabhu. That
Go ahead.
means lack of interest in it.
Yeah,
Not
lack of
interested in it.
not interested. Yeah, these are all correct. Not bothered, indifferent, lack of interest. Yes. Here, the dictionary meaning says lack of interest is actually lack of enthusiasm, lack of concern. And for example, there was widespread apathy among the students. So it means a lack of feeling, lack of emotion, lack of interest or concern. Yeah, it's an added on here. Bhaktivinoda is also indicated here that it's the same indifference that the jiva exhibited. It's a big subject. We won't dwell on it too much. That before falling away, before turning away from Krishna means at first being apathetic, not caring about his devotional service. Not being cared. So then one turns their face. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions that. Yeah. So now, yeah, the cause, just read from here, the cause for attraction to Maya is that apathy is not the natural attribute of the soul. So thankfully, it's not the natural attribute of the soul. The jiva must exhibit some emotion and some interest for something. So if we're apathetic to Krishna, instead we're going to put our emotions and attraction to the material energy. You have to go one way or the other. So yeah, so here if it's mentioned that although apathy can be a state of mind, it is a temporary one. But if the sadhaka doesn't conquer apathy, he will be conquered by it. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura mentions that. And the Sanskrit definition of apathy is here, Udyatshinya. Yeah. So here the meaning becomes to sit apart or to take no interest in. Udashina means to sit apart. Again, this word comes up to be indifferent. And Udyatsinya is what is related to Udasina, which is indifference, apathy, and disregard. Okay. Now and Krishna uses this word in Bhagavad Gita in different contexts, but the word is used here. You can see here, Shina, to sit apart. Yeah. Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I'm ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. So that's Krishna's perspective dealing with the material creation. It sees external energy. So it's described here. He's ever detached. He is from all these, seated as though neutral. Interesting. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura brings that in to help us understand. Okay. Now then, what's the solution? if we're apathetic, we don't to one's japa. He mentions too, and this will come up more than once, is to, I think I mentioned this last week as well, is to chant by the side as much as we can get the opportunity for, a chant by the side of advanced Vaishnavas. Yeah. Now, in our ISKCON society today, we have, it's quite popular. We have, for those who do not have the opportunity to chant daily in a temple, then you might want to make use of a lot of devotees do in our congregation have japa sanghas on the line, and that may be the next best thing. Otherwise, you can, if you really feel you need to put some work, you need to work on your japa, you're really not satisfied, you'll come to terms with the effects of inattention, etc., then you might want to organize that you attend a japa retreat. They're very powerful, can be a very powerful experience. They go on different places in our society to get to chant with advanced Vaishnavas. Yeah. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura mentions to take note of the mood in which they chant japa, and also the visible signs and the pleasures that he tastes from the holy name. It's very inspiring, actually. I don't know if anyone has had the experience where you're trying to chant japa and you're like furiously trying to keep your mind focused, and you look at someone else chanting japa, and it seems like they're swimming in nectar. Effortlessly, they seem to be plying the wonderful waves of rasa in regards to the holy name. They're swimming effortlessly. You know, if you can't, you've seen it when a swimming pool, if you can't swim properly, someone can't swim properly, but they're trying to. There's a lot of endeavor, isn't it? They're splashing, they're making so much effort just to stay afloat. And there's so much water going everywhere. There's so much of a commotion. And then someone else, they are expert swimmers, and they're like fish. They're just gliding through the water smoothly, without no panic, without no stress. So if sometimes you see any devotees, that's why we should observe them, and you see them, they're just having a good time swimming in the ocean of the nectar of the holy name. So just by seeing that, you'll think, oh, I really want to chant like that, you know, and that will inspire you. All right. So, yeah, so he mentions that even in a humble state of mind, one may try to emulate such an advanced devotee's chanting with an aspiration that in due course he will also be able to chant like that. Yeah. Now he mentions, so say if there is no association of Vaishnavas for one reason or another, you could come to a temple, you could come to the temple. That's it, I've had enough. I'm chanting here in my house. I'm really struggling at the moment. Let me go once a week to the temple, if that's possible. You know, then you come in the temple and you chant with 10, 20 devotees or more. Otherwise, he mentions to chant in the holy place, or in the presence of Tulsi as well. He mentions that. Or in the association of senior persons. You sit in the association of senior persons. Yeah, once I did that, my Guru Maharaj was doing a japa marathon, and I was struggling, and we was doing an extended japa. We was doing a sponsored japa, actually. That was a few years ago. So I went and sat right next to my spiritual master. And first he looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" So I said, "Guru Maharaj, I really need to sit next to you because I'm really can't concentrate on my japa." Then he smiled and he let me sit next to him. So that was really nice. It was really powerful. Just by sitting next to him, I know I had to chant properly. So we should seek the association of advanced Vaishnavas. Another, to help with apathy, we must try to stick to the number of rounds that we chant. Those who have taken initiation at 16. If much as possible, chant more. Of course, that depends on your specific situation, but we should want to chant more. Yeah. One second, I'll just get my big bag and show you something. I'm just checking the time. I better speed up a bit in the slides here. Yeah, 16 rounds. Okay, some of you may not be chanting 16 rounds, but those who have taken initiation, then we chant 16 rounds. Now, 16 rounds is a minimum. Do we want to do minimum for a whole spiritual life? Is that what we're going to do? We're going to do the minimum? No, we should want to increase according to the opportunities that we have, and we should want to increase as much as possible. Now, you can see this here. Now, every set of japa beads, or every set of counting beads, then there's 20 beads, yeah? There's always 20. There's 16, and you've got 4 more. So I always thought that these 4 more beads were for if one of the beads breaks, then you got some spare beads. Or I thought the 4 beads are there to help you tie your 16 beads on. That's what these 4 extra beads for. If you look at every set of counting beads, every set, as far as I've seen, has 20 beads on. Now, what these 4 are for is this. When you chant 16 rounds, you move one down. Your next 16, you chant another one. Your next 16, your next 16, if you get the opportunity. That's what these 4 extra are for. Some of you might have known that already, so please forgive me, but just in case, so just to remind it, that's why those 4 are there. So as much as possible, like today's Ekadashi. So some of you may have chanted extra rounds. So that's going to help to deal with this being apathetic to the holy name. You kind of chant more. You chant more. You kind of like, even in a mood of protest, okay, you damn mind, you was complaining, I'm going to chant more. I'm exaggerating emotion a bit. Okay. And Bhaktivinoda Thakura, finally, he mentions that devotee who, this is for those who are not prone to fall asleep. He said they should go to a solitary place and chant japa with their heads covered with a cloth. Yeah, sometimes you see devotees do that while they're chanting japa, they have their head covered with a cloth. Or I've done that before, and I've seen devotees do that. What is really amazing, if you put a bucket over your head and the sound just goes all around your head, if you have a bucket over your head and you chant the holy name, it's quite, it definitely helps to be attentive. But please be careful with when you do that. Don't do that in public. It might get us a few strange looks. One time we was on traveling Sankirtan, and one devotee had a problem with that, so he was outside the van. He had the bucket over his head and he was shouting in the bucket the holy name. He got some quite strange looks from people, and eventually a police car came. So we had some explaining to do. Okay, so any questions on that, please feel free to ask or anything to add. So that's apathy, okay? Apathetic. So that's what it is. We may experience it in our, we may experience it in our japa or in our sadhana, and Bhaktivinoda Thakura gives some ways that we can overcome it, okay? So the next one is here. Laziness. This is lassitude, okay? So this means we all know what laziness means. We covered that in Pramada. Also, it can mean being rigid, dull, dumb. Also, apathetic, we can use it as well. Generally, we may see this if someone is lazy, for instance, they will be chanting and falling asleep. Now, if you're feeling sleepy when you're chanting, then the obvious simple thing to do is to stand up. Yeah. But if we're lazy, we won't be bothered to stand up. We'll be quite happy to sit there, keep on nodding off while we're chanting. All right. So this can be an obstacle to our spiritual progress. Yeah. So here, so apathy indicates a lack of attraction to chant. Yeah. But laziness is an unwillingness to make the physical effort to chant. Yeah, laziness is an unwillingness to make a physical effort to chant, and you have to give a lot to it. You have to Hari Krishna. You have to be in a bit of a, you have to be alive. You have to want to hear that name. But if you're lazy, you just be, you won't, and you won't make that physical effort. So we can't be lazy when it comes to the holy name. So, okay. Here, Bhaktivinoda Thakura mentions to chant again with advanced devotees. The sound vibration that he emits will give a lazy neophyte the inspiration and strength to sever the bonds of ignorance. If anyone else has any comments to make how to overcome these things in your experience, then please feel free to share. Now here, let me just go forward a bit. Oh, actually, we started. No, yeah, we've only got 15 minutes left. So, okay. Now, here's another one. Distraction. Excuse me. So this word means the Sanskrit word is vikshepa. So this distraction Sanskrit means vikshepa, which means to throw, means to scatter or disperse. I'm sure devotees may have seen these. They're quite common, actually. Devotees do plays of these different of these distractions in japa. One's called what's it called? Radar japa. One is looking left and looking right, etc. Looking on your phone. Yeah. So yeah. Let's just let. Yeah, so read from here. The word vikshepa is evocative. When a devotee scatters his mind to everywhere other than where it should be, namely Krishna's name, then he is said to be distracted. Yeah. Yeah, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura mentions it. If by good fortune, either by his own intelligence or by prompting of well-wishers, a devotee realizes the implication of distracted sadhana, he should immediately act to reform himself. Okay. He must banish all impure thoughts and allurements from the mind by consigning himself to Vaishnava culture and tradition. And we're going to speak a little bit about that here. Okay, we've covered that. So here, again, this study which we're presenting, this is based on, for those who weren't with us last week, this is based on the book by His Holiness Shivaram Swami called the Sankalpa Kaumudi. So he includes these here as a means to address our being lazy, apathetic, or indifferent to the holy name. Yeah. So one is that we should or if we're not already, we should want to immerse ourselves in our Vaishnava lifestyle, which may mean including wearing a devotional attire. If we're not, putting tilak on, eating prashadam, and especially attending festivals. They can have such a wonderful, profound effect, and they can help us to overcome these things. Yeah. Now, Vaishnava culture, our culture means as much as possible, it may not be possible all the time for some of you, but we should want to attend temple functions and engage in the worship of the Lord in the temple. We have many festivals which celebrate the Lord's incarnations, and also today's Ekadashi, for instance. So we try and chant more. We have the appearance days of Krishna. So just not being too aloof from our Vaishnava lifestyle and culture. Sometimes, for one reason or another, devotees become a bit aloof from the culture of from our Vaishnava culture, which includes these things: temple worship, festivals. This will, by taking part in these things, it's going to help us. It's going to assist us, yeah, in our devotional practice, yeah. And especially, yeah. Now, now here's we might just finish on this. I've got a few more slides after this, but this is when I mentioned in the beginning, if anyone has any personal things they want to share, please feel free to. I'm just going to go over a few things which I thought of and I've been thinking of while I've been getting this presentation together. I was also looking online a little bit. There's this term, it's called ADD, Attention Deficit Disorder. It's also known as sometimes Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder, which is seen in adults, but mainly can be seen in children. There's different ways to try and overcome it. Now, most of them are not relevant to us at all. And I was looking also, it's an issue within the Christian church where they're dealing with this attentive deficit disorder. And one thing which I saw, which I thought was quite good, is one here, is find a buddy to share your struggles with. Yeah. So it's good to, you may be struggling with inattentiveness and being distracted. So, for instance, you may find yourself scrolling on YouTube, or some other social media, and it's really become a problem for you. And you're finding it hard to actually stop it. Yeah. So it's good if you could find a friend, someone who's, a friend, a well-wisher, and you share your struggles. Yeah. And you, as well as sharing your struggles, that you make a pact that you actually want to improve. And then when you meet your friend again in a week, you can share of how you got on or how they got on as well. Yeah. So that leads also into putting restrictions on our use of social media. Now, you may want to take one step at a time. It depends on, it depends specifically on yourself and what's going on with you. But if, for instance, you find yourself becoming distracted by the news, etc., and looking online at this and that and everything, which may often not be connected to a devotional service, you want to start to put restrictions. Try it for one day. Try for one day, not looking at any news. Don't look at the YouTube. Avoid Facebook. Some of you might be doing this already. That's great. But if it is a problem for you, try just one day and then take it to 2 days and then try a week. Yeah. So you have to put restrictions on your use of social media and have confidence that you can change. You can, by Krishna's grace and association of devotees, you can transform your spiritual life. We should always have faith. Krishna is very kind. So we should have that in mind, that we can change and we want to change. Yeah, so it's not impossible. Another one here is practice attention at other times in the day. So practice being attentive, knowing it's going to help you in your spiritual practices. Simple things. If you're speaking to someone, be attentive to what they're saying. Practice being attentive. Practice, be aware of being inattentive in everything that you do throughout the day, cooking or whatever it may be. Try to bring your thoughts all in line with what you're actually doing, and just try that at different parts of the day. Another one here is meditate on translations to devotional songs while singing. So it's nice that will help us to be attentive. It will help to control the mind as well. So, for example, we have the samsara prayers in the morning. You may listen at home, you may chant at home, you may just come to the temple once a week or whatever. But whenever you hear these bhajans, we should know the meaning. Look at the meanings, and as they're being sung, go through the meanings in your mind. That will help you to be attentive. Yeah, and that will then therefore help your japa. So then when we sit down for the Nrsimhadev prayers, meditate on the meaning of the Nrsimhadev prayers and pray to Lord Nrsimhadev. Yeah. Tulsi prayers are the same. Such a wonderful prayer. Yeah. Be aware of the meaning, and Guru Puja as well. Follow the word meanings. Practice being attentive. Another one, spend time learning slokas. It is so therapeutic in many ways, dare I say, even materially, but definitely spiritually. So we want to practice being attentive and trying to memorize things. Okay, it's difficult, but the memory is like a muscle. And the more you use it, the more you try to use it, then the stronger it gets. And for Vaishnavas, memory is very important because we want to remember Krishna. Yeah, we want to remember Krishna, his name, form, qualities, and pastimes. So we want to memorize leelas and pastimes. So we have to practice using our memory. So learning slokas and memorizing slokas, it's very good. I'm sure some of you have done that. So these are some things that I came up with, some other tips. So we just have 5 minutes left. I have a couple more slides, but I want to open it up here for any devotees' comments, any experiences that you had in anything at all, what we have discussed, or even some questions about being attentive, etc. Anyone would like to share some successes they've had?
Prabhu, I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned people put bucket on their head when chanting
Yes.
the mantra or the piece of cloth. How
Yeah.
does it help? How does it help? I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. How does it help? Well, you can't see anything else. That's the basic idea. Your eyes, either that you can close your eyes, but Bhaktivinoda Thakura just put a cloth over your head. Yeah, that's how it helps, because it helps to lessen the distraction. That's as simple as that. That's how it helps. And I've tried it, and I've seen devotees try it. They put the chadar over their head, and even just a chadar or your sari, then over your head, it creates like a sound bucket.
Yeah.
And as you chant, the sound becomes more loudly, it becomes more, it's kind of circles around your head. So you could try it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. There's one thing I want to say, Prabhu. I think Krishna, as you said, is the most merciful person. He will help people. Looking at your intentions, what your intentions are. If you are really interested in chanting the Hari name and you want to do it, I think Krishna will help you. This is my feeling, because there are certain things I could not ever even imagine to do myself. But to just simply chant the Hare Krishna name and say, please, Krishna, help me. I've got to get through this and I've got to get on with it. And I think he looks at the intensity you have within your mind to chant or be near Krishna. As we have read about Kamsa, who could not even sleep during the night, thinking about Krishna, that he will kill him. So I think it's the intention he looks at. And Krishna, as you know, Paramatma is sitting in everybody's heart. I think this is my feeling, and I think I've succeeded in doing certain practical works, like materialistic, achieving this, and I won't be able to lift this and do this, or just silly things, But if you remember him, I think things happen. So my advice is, please have intensity of, I want to do it, please help me. And then Krishna will listen.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for bringing it out. There's this saying that God helps those who actually help themselves.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Yeah, and
Thank
I'm
you.
sure devotees have had that experience where, yeah, we kind of, we don't have the ability. But when Krishna sees us trying, as Mother nicely said, at some point he will come in and make his holy name so attractive and sweet that it will be difficult for us to be inattentive. But that will come from making an effort, from not being lazy, for example. I'm sure those who have taken up the chanting, of chanting on a daily basis, that we have experienced that. But we have
And
to.
sorry, Prabhu, I want to thank you for making this lesson, these two sessions on attention and inattentiveness. I think it's been very, very useful. And
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. Krishna will bless you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Prabhu.
it's quite a short presentation. I could elaborate more, but it's just kind of a short presentation, just to highlight it for us and for myself. But thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the last couple of minutes we have anything to share? Someone's asking about how to get the recording of this video. Now I'm going to, yeah, on the link which you have, I think my contact is there. If not, I will, let me think how you could get the link. What I can do is I can give you my phone number, Garima, and others who want it, and you contact me and I can send you a link. So my phone number is, you ready? I can put it here. 07854349070. 07854349070. So you can send me a message or whatever, then I can send you the link to the video, which I'll probably upload tomorrow. Okay? Oh, that's gone directly. 1 second. Coming now. 07854349070. Okay, anybody else there would like to share something? Let's have perhaps a couple more. And for all those who've been attentive these last two classes, you can share some secret or some things that you do to help you be attentive. Let me see how many with us today. We've got 16 devotees out there.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Yeah.
It's just to share something that I heard from another devotee.
Yeah.
When you
please.
mentioned about having a sacred place for chanting.
Yeah.
And that devotee, he was saying how he's got a 2-year-old child who always wants to be with him when he's at home. So he finds it difficult to chant.
Yeah.
And that devotee, what he would do is when his job starts at 9, let's say, so he leaves the house like at 6:30 or something. He gets to his workplace at 7. And then he'll just sit in his car. He makes this his sacred place and he'll chant until he gets to work. So without sort of disturbing his daughter either. But at the same time, it's finding ways to create this atmosphere for chanting. And if we think about it properly, we can find ways and means to get to that.
Yeah, that's very nice. I'm just thinking, actually, you could probably have a whole Ishtagosti on devotees who have children and what they do in order to complete their rounds. So here's one. That's very nice. So go to work a little bit early. So before you go into the office, you just stay sitting in the car and you chant the holy name. That's such a simple, obvious, wonderful thing. Thank you. So there's some nice advice there if you have children, and get out the house and go to work a bit earlier and park up the side of the road and chant Hari Krishna. Yeah, I've spent hours chanting in vans and cars in my devotional life. All right. Anybody else would like to share something? If not, I thank you very much for being with us. I thank you very much for being attentive, and I hope this is going to help you be attentive in your japa, in your spiritual life in general. And I've definitely learned a lot from preparing this presentation. And I have to admit, in preparing this presentation, I was coming to terms with my own inattention. So I've had to make amends myself in getting this together and also in teaching as well. So thank you, everyone. There is a part 2 to this, so I'm not too sure when I'll be. I'm trying to get that together at some point if those are interested. We'll be speaking about the different levels of successful chanting. It gets a bit more positive, yeah, for those who are advanced in chanting a holy name, and what world that's and what's that is all about, and what does it look like, etc., etc. So we'll probably be that. So look out for that if you found this interesting. Okay, thank you, everyone. I wish you a wonderful weekend ahead. And Hare Krishna. We'll stop there. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Ram, Ram, Ram. Hare
Thank you
Gaur.
very much, Prabhu. Hari Bol, Hari Bol.